So new growing season is upon us, and there's going to be some of you who are starting gardening for the very first time, and this video is here to help you guys. There's 7 rules for a thriving kitchen garden. I'm not really much of a person to follow rules when it comes to gardening, for those of you that know the channel, but these are 7 things which are definitely a given and will help ensure that you have a very successful first season. The first rule is the most important one, and it's also the most simple one, and it's easy to forget, but it will keep you motivated and inspired throughout the growing season. And it's this: it's to grow the things that you enjoy eating. Now, of course, I feel anything homegrown will taste better than the counterparts that you can buy in a shop. But when you're starting off, just pick a handful of things that you enjoy eating. It might be strawberries, it could be onions, it could be leeks, it could be peas. Peas are a fantastic one to get started with. They're nice and easy to grow as well. And just focus on those and then experience how amazing those taste in comparison. And then you can start to think, okay, maybe I'm not so keen on, say, shop bought beetroot, but maybe if I grow my own, it'll taste better, and chances are it will. So grow the things in the first year that you just enjoy eating, because that's a lovely incentive to see you through your first season. The second rule is that any space that is undercover, be it a polytunnel or a cold frame, is the most precious growing space. It's more precious or more valuable per square foot or per square metre than beds outside, because having a covering extends the season, usually, depending on the covering, by 2 to 4 weeks at either end of the growing season. Now, this is more suitable for more kind of like temperate climates, but it means that I'm here in March and I can harvest things, for example, perpetual spinach, I've got tatsoi coming through, I've got a bunch of coriander. This is all kind of stuff which the quality just wouldn't really match when growing outside. So even if you just have a cold frame, you can use it to start off your seedlings or to grow, say, an early crop of carrots. And if you're looking for cold frames, you can find them over at hughesgarden.com. And if I didn't have a polytunnel, I would really struggle to grow tomatoes and cucumbers in my climate. The third rule is a rule that is something I break every year, because I keep on thinking that, oh no, I'll remember what that is. But even the next day you completely forgot what you've sown. And the rule is to label everything that you sow, because you might sow a particular variety that you want to grow again, and you're eating it and you're thinking, oh, it's amazing, and you're like, oh yeah, what variety was this? And then you suddenly realised you forgot to label it and you can't find the seed packets. Just get into a habit. Whenever you sow or transplant anything, add a label, add a date as well, very useful, but just keep a habit of making sure you know what you're growing, because you're going to thank yourself later. The next rule to know is whenever you're watering, just because the surface looks wet doesn't mean that the water is getting down underneath. Sometimes you need to make sure that you give things a really, really good soaking, and to not just rely on how it looks by observation. So if in doubt, just look under the top 2 inches, and if it's still dry, that's a good cue to make sure that you give it a nice watering. And you might be wondering why I'm watering an empty bed in a polytunnel. Well, the clue is that it doesn't rain in a polytunnel, and you don't want the soil to dry out, because that can affect the soil microbes. So just by making sure that there is moisture, it's going to help the soil. The 5th rule is that you can never make too much homemade compost. Often, for the majority of gardens, the limiting factor is the amount of compost that you can produce, in terms of trying to be as self-sufficient as possible. And we have to buy in compost, which is totally fine, but don't think that you only need one compost bin. Try and make as much compost using as many different methods as possible. It could be creating, for example, lasagna beds. It could be creating a hotbed so you can grow and then get compost at the end. Another way of making compost is in the pathways themselves. Every single garden has pathways, and you're not using up any growing space by doing that. So Get into a habit of getting as many different materials from around your local area and make as much homemade compost as possible, because this is going to power your garden and make it really high yielding and save you a lot of costs. Rule 6 is that no matter how prepared or on top of things you feel you are, there is always going to be elements of either mistakes or failures in the gardening journey. It's just a part of it, because we're working with the seasons and we never really know what's going to happen. You know, suddenly there could be a really late frost, or maybe some animal eats all of your seedlings, or some things just don't germinate. It's part of the joy of gardening, I think. You've just got to find a way to accept any kind of honest mistakes and failures, to just tolerate it, and to see it as just ways of constantly improving. One thing I did last year is that I just completely forgot to net the strawberries, and so I barely ate any strawberries, because obviously the blackbirds got to them before me, and I kept on meaning to cover them and I kept on forgetting, and I really don't want to make that mistake again, because it is definitely ingrained in my brain. The 7th rule is that no two gardens are the same. Every single growing space has its own unique list of opportunities and also challenges. And so what I'm saying is, it's really important to get loads of ideas and inspiration from the internet, from books, but to understand that you've got a unique space, you've got a unique garden, and you as the gardener, it's about working with that space to find as many opportunities, to get as much potential from it as possible. So cherry pick the things that you like and adapt it to suit your space, and to create a garden that's just maybe an expression, an outer expression of the things that you enjoy. On the subject of talking about gardening inspiration, I've got a whole playlist called the Inspiring Gardens playlist, which you can watch right here, featuring many amazing gardens all over the UK. So you can just capture, you can cherry pick little ideas from all of these gardens and adapt them to your own space. So I hope you enjoy.